Hi everyone, I am Yuvika Wahi from Rental Scale Up, your go-to source for short-term rental news and insights. Managing a short-term rental business is getting more complex than ever. You have regulations to deal with, operational challenges that you've always had, and the constant need to stay ahead of the market. So, how are some of the biggest property managers navigating these changes and still growing successfully? This is the exact question that we hope to address with our founder and property manager interview series. And I am so happy to have with me today Alexander Limpert. He's the co-founder and CEO of GuestReady, one of the largest property management companies in Europe, and RentalReady, a property management software designed from the ground up to solve the exact challenges property managers face. Let's get started. Hello, Alexander. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me here, Yuvika.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited for this interview. You were already a speaker with us very recently in our webinar for February, talking about regulations and how you have adapted at Guest Ready to these regulations. But today we want to get to know you and your history with Guest Ready, what made it come about, what challenges you faced, just get a sense of who you are and what the company is all about, and what gave way to Rental Ready in the process as well. So, without further ado, let us know what led you to the short-term rental industry. Was there a particular moment that inspired you to launch Guest Ready, or how did it come about?
Yeah, it's been a while now, actually, so I need to go down memory lane and recall what happened actually. But this wasn't planned in a long way before we got started with Guest Ready. It was more something that came about in a conversation with a friend, also my co-founder now. We both liked traveling, and we saw that short-term rentals were becoming one of the fastest growing and probably the most beloved category in travel. And we saw that is a lot going on and a lot to be done. Those days when we started, it was 2016. We're still somewhat early days for urban short-term rentals. Let's say it this way. I think short-term rentals have been around for decades, but really with the rise of Airbnb, they got another boost, especially in urban areas as well. And we felt that some platforms, some OTAs, they were doing a great job already, namely Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, and others. They were doing a great job in connecting the owner with the guests and just facilitating that booking. But as an owner, I and renting my place myself on Airbnb, I found that after the booking, a lot of work and it goes into this, and that's when the real work actually starts, right? And we felt that we can improve the experience with Rental Ready for the owner, but also for the guest. And what I mean by this is for the owner, we wanted to provide an end-to-end solution that allows them to be completely hands-off, some solution that just allows them to sit back and be remote also from their property. That's one of the main challenges that lots of owners, they're actually not physically located at the property, so they need somebody that takes care of that. And then for the guest, we wanted to bring the best of a hotel together with those things that we love about a home, the unique character, the coziness, and all these things that gave rise to short-term rentals, but then also provide a hotel quality service when it comes to the cleaning, when it comes to professional linen, when it comes to amenities such as toiletries and 24/7 support if you need it, and all of these things that we love about hotels. So that's originally what we started off. I think we also got some inspiration from Food Panda, which is the company that I worked previously at. And there we had a platform that connected people that wanted to order food with restaurants. And similarly, we did an okay job in connecting these two. But then for the restaurant, after getting a booking, they had to deliver it. And they're actually pretty good at cooking food, but not very good at delivering the food. So in the end, the experience wasn't the best, neither for the restaurants nor for the end consumer. And we also said we have to go one step deeper. We have to take care of the delivery and really make this whole operational procedure around the booking easier. So it was a very similar sort of journey. Again, only scalable through technology. And that is then actually what also led to Rental Ready, that we said, in order to make this scalable for property managers, we need a technology that coordinates all these million things that are going on: the cleaning, the linen, maintenance, pre-arrival, check-in information, all of that. So there are so many moving parts, and I think that's the struggle of being a property manager. And to be able to make this scalable, you need the right technology, and that's what Rental Ready is all about, to help operations become much smoother and much simpler.
I think that's such a fascinating case of you taking. I think this is something we hear a lot in marketing about learning from other industries and applying those sort of findings to short-term rentals, because it's not a particularly new sector, but it is new when it comes to professionalization, standardization. So what you've done is a really interesting case of taking those levels of standardization from another industry that had some level
Mhm.
installed already. But just to give a sense to our audience of when you talk about scaling, what you're really saying in terms of, maybe you can share with us the number of properties GuestReady is managing, as well as which
Sure.
your main markets are, so that they can get a sense of um, what led to Rental Ready as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so with GuestReady, we're now in 7 main countries with over 3,500 units that we manage across these countries. But yeah, as said, it all started from zero, and we scaled from zero properties all the way there. Actually, also, since you asked about my personal journey, I mean, I onboarded the first properties myself. I cleaned the first properties myself. I did all of the things in the beginning. Luckily, we raised some funding and we were able to invest that funding to build the team, to build technology, and so on. But in the beginning, it was really very hands-on, and I was doing everything myself, being in London, starting it there from the ground up. And yeah, Rental Ready really grew from there. We initially built on third-party technology, but then bit by bit, we just introduced these technology features that we were missing at GuestReady as a property manager, that we were saying, hey, we need this to scale our operations from 10 properties to 20 to 50 to 100 to several hundreds, and now several thousands. And over the time, Rental Ready just became more and more and more powerful, and really allowed us to scale this way. And it's now a technology that actually empowers property managers, no matter if they have 20 units, 50 units, a few hundreds, or a few thousands, right? Yeah, I think that's the journey of GuestReady and Rental Ready.
But quite a journey that is. To go from zero to several thousands is no easy feat. So congratulations to you and your team on accomplishing that and so successfully at that. But and also, like, this growth is definitely the priority for most property managers today in Europe, US, everywhere pretty much.
Hmm.
Everyone's looking to scale the size of their portfolio. What would you say, if you have to state maybe like top two things that helped you grow in size, let's say in terms of number of listings, what would you say worked the best for you at GuestReady?
I think there's no one or two real things that that are like sort of the silver bullet, and if you have that silver bullet, then you'll become successful. I think it's so many different factors that add, but in the end, what is growth? It's how many units you add minus how many you lose, right? And as property managers, we do have churn. That is the reality. But if you can do a good job in managing these properties, thanks to your processes, thanks to the team that you trained up, thanks to the technology that you're leveraging, if you can do a really good job for the guests and also the owners, then you will churn less, and also word will go around that you're doing a good job, and then you will get more referrals from other owners, and you will be able to add more properties to your portfolio. So it's just about making sure that you're always adding more than you're losing. And I think the key is to do a great job, because in the end, it's a small industry, and and word goes around, right? And I think it's so important. I think that's what we also learned is that to keep owners happy, you have to have happy guests because these happy guests, they drive revenues for the owners, and that's ultimately what owners are after. Of course, they're also after having their properties taken care of. It's one of their most important assets that they invested so much of their wealth in, and yeah, it's very important to take care of it, but revenues is always something that in the end it also boils down to, especially if the property is more of an investment property or a second home rather than a primary home.
And you seem to be, and it seems to be a strength of GuestReady as well, that you are a big believer in creating processes, defined processes, which is inherent to professionalization in any industry. Do you have any suggestions for property managers who are still managing a thousand different things and kind of unable to get that sort of broad level vision in terms of how to divide their processes and how to think about them? Any best practices you can share?
I think it really comes step by step. The step from 10 properties to 50 is different than from 50 to 100 or 200. But it's just about dividing the work, and it's about making sure also that this information that we have in our heads, that this is written down somewhere, that the processes are written down, that the information that we have about the property is actually written down in a very and stored in a very clear manner in the property management system. And that's actually something, for example, that we're missing at GuestReady from off-the-shelf standardized property management systems that were built by people that never managed a property in their life. They didn't really facilitate this sort of structured property information because we really need this for every property. We have hundreds of data points, including where the fuse boxes are located, how the oven works, how to troubleshoot the boiler, how to access the property if there are any quirks with the access and so on. All of this is super important information, and it needs to be in the property information in the PMS. It can't be just stored somewhere in somebody's head or in an Excel sheet or Google sheet. It needs to be in the PMS because that's where the team will find it. That's where also now we're talking a lot about AI. AI needs to access this information in a very structured manner. And we've built RentalReady in this way. And I think this is since you asked about what is one of the core things to keep in mind when growing, it's about the information management about the property. And then, as I said, also about the processes. You need a knowledge base for your team, what kind of processes and policies they have to follow. This can be in Google Docs, this can be in Notion, this can be in other tools, but it needs to be written down. It can't just be existing in people's heads.
Seems like such an obvious thing, yet something that most people tend to skip because we trust our memories more than we
Yeah.
should, I think.
It is an obvious thing, but it's also a very difficult thing. And believe me, we're
Yeah.
still working on that too at GuestReady all the time. And it's an ongoing process. It will always be an ongoing process, but it is very important.
That's good. But you said that you're building that RentalReady is built in a way to facilitate that. Can you share a little bit more about that? Or maybe since this is a PMS built by someone who has done property management from the ground up,
Hmm.
um, how does it differentiate itself from other cookie cutter solutions out on the market, for example?
Yeah, I think from the main differences I would really say is that it's built by operators, not just engineers, and that is so important because we've lived through firsthand all these challenges in the team, and our CTO was super hands-on. He's been in the industry also for many years, and many of people in our tech team, they were there in the early days of GuestReady, and they've actually sat on the floor, moved linen, cleaned properties themselves. So they weren't just these hands-off engineers sitting somewhere in an ivory tower in a tech lab coding away. And I think then you can see this reflected in the way how the property management system is laid out, how it works. It's another difference I would say is that it's really engineered for scaling and for scaling from those 20 properties to 200 to 2000 and beyond. So it's not just meant for property managers that have 20 properties and then it kind of stops there, or 50 and it stops there. It really goes it's somebody that, like, right, it's a tool that accompanies you on the journey of your growth. I think also what is important is that it's an all-in-one solution. Of course, we have integrations, like for example with Price Labs, right? Especially where we don't have our core strength somewhere, like pricing. You need external data. And smart locks, for example, you need to create it's IoT, it's something completely different. We're not going to touch all of these different aspects, but the core of property management, an owner dashboard, guest communication, task management, channel management, all of these things, that is something that we've built in a very integrated way, because we believe that only if it's integrated and all these different elements of the system are ideally tailored to each other, to talk to each other, and the information flows perfectly from one point of the system to another, then you can unlock the real power of the system. And if you have a generic system that can work with hundreds and thousands of external tools, then you probably just build it in a very generic way, but it is not designed to, it is not that as powerful in the end, because it's just very generic. So I think these are some of the differences of how we think about Rental Ready, how we think about technology. Yeah, I can go a bit more into some of the details also, that are more related to the actual work of property management.
Absolutely. I mean, I would like to acknowledge your point about specialization versus connections. There are things that you specialize in, and you should refine that further. But there are also components that other people are experts in, and you can combine your strengths. So it seems like you're
Of course.
making good use of both. But yeah, if you'd like to go into more detail, we would love to. I would love to hear it. I'm sure the audience will also love to hear it. It is the business is fascinating, and the way different management companies approach it is quite different as well. So it's always fascinating to hear different perspectives.
Yeah, I think so. So for me, when I think about technology, it has to accompany the property manager across the life cycle of a property, and that starts from onboarding, right? And I already mentioned how we're collecting all this data. So at onboarding, we have detailed checklists in the system that our team, when they do an onboarding, they fill in. Because also something that we learned at GuestReady, it's very important to have clear property standards. And again, if you're a property manager with 20 properties and you're one person, you probably know exactly what your standards are. But if you get to dozens and hundreds of properties and you have team members, they also need to know what the standards are. So what better way than writing it down and also enforcing it in the system, so that any new property that comes on lives up to these standards. And like that, you maintain your brand, and like that, you maintain also the profitability of each property, because each property will be a property that is to your standards, that has the amenities that you require, and that is performing on the market. So that's kind of where it starts, from onboarding, from the data collection, making sure everything is there, because in the end, guests will ask you questions. And again, if you have 20 properties, you know them all inside out, then maybe it's okay. But if you have team members then that maybe haven't been to all these properties, they need to know this information. And there it becomes super important to have it all in the system. It's also really important for AI. That's actually something quite new now, right? That AI is helping. For example, we are integrated with different AI models with Rental Ready that help us to do guest communication. It's been incredibly helpful, but it can only be that helpful if AI actually has the right information in a structured way. Yeah, then channel management is the next thing. You onboarded the property, you need to bring it up on all the different channels. And I'm sure all the PMSs out there, they do have a channel manager now. So the next thing then is channel management. You onboarded the property, you got to list it on all the channels and market it there. And there our approach with Rental Ready and with GuestReady was to be rather more focused on a few channels that bring the most bookings and then integrate them super well and have all the data, the endpoints of the API integrated so that we can manage everything from the PMS, that we don't have to log in to all these channels all the time, because it creates friction, it creates inefficiencies, it creates also security risks if you have a big team that has access to all the channels and to bank accounts and payout details and so on there. So we opted for deep integrations that don't just synchronize the availability of the property and the prices, but it also synchronize the messages, the content, pre-approvals, finances, all of these different things that you now can get through the APIs, so that you don't have to actually log into the extranet of these OTAs, and you can manage everything from the PMS at your fingertips. The next thing then would be guest books. You get a booking, you got to communicate with them. So there we talked already about guest communication and AI. And again, we have a messaging inbox in Rental Ready that brings all the messages into one place from all the different platforms. It also connects WhatsApp, email, SMS, and so on, so that you have everything in one place. And as you scale, you have multiple people working on it. So the way how it needs to look like is a bit more like a ticketing system where you can see, okay, somebody is working on that particular guest message so that somebody else is not picking up the same message. Not a problem again if you're one person, but if you have multiple people, then this can become quite complicated. And also we have in the messaging inbox all the information about the property that is being booked, about the guest on the site, so that you don't have to click all the way into different tabs, different ways. So the way how we build Rental Ready is that the least clicks you need to make, the better, because we're all super busy and we can't spend our time clicking around finding information. The next thing would be task management, and that's such a core of property management, right? Maintenance, housekeeping, those tasks pile up, and quickly with a few properties, there's a lot going on, and we don't want to miss a cleaning, we don't want to miss a scheduled maintenance or an ad hoc maintenance. So again, we have there a ticketing system where we can raise, for example, if a guest messages, we can simply raise a ticket from there, and then this ticket is being created. Previously, we didn't have this information, so you have messages flying on in Slack and other communications tools, and all of a sudden nobody knows who took care of what. And it's really important that this is then again stored in a very clever way where we can see all the open tickets, all the open maintenance, all the cleanings that are scheduled for the day, and so on and so forth. And we also have mobile apps. It's something that again we learned a bit from Foodpanda, where our riders had apps, our restaurant had apps, and now here at GuestReady and Rental Ready, the staff that is on the ground doing the cleaning and the maintenance missions, they have apps, and the owner has an app too. I think that brings me to the next point. Then you got the bookings, you arranged everything. Also, the owner then wants to know about this, and there we need to create this visibility for the owner. And you also previously asked like what helped us to scale. I think, yeah, keeping owners happy and also attracting them in the first place. For us, having an impressive owner app that is very well designed, that has all the information that they need at their fingertips, in their pocket, on their phone, that was super important and super helpful. So the owners can see their occupancy, they can see their stats, they can see their reviews, they can see Even if you allow it, they can see the maintenance tasks that are ongoing. They can see, of course, all the bookings and which ones have already been paid out to them and which ones not. They can open and close the calendar and so on. And all of these things are very much appreciated by owners, and they also reduce the work for the owner success team. So that's how we call it, GuestReady, our team that is dealing with owners. You also asked before how you can structure the team a bit. The way how we structure this sales, which is taking care of the new properties that are coming in. Then they come to a dedicated onboarding team that is working with these checklists and making sure the property is ready. Then we have a guest experience team that is messaging with the guests. We have an operations team that is taking care then of the on-the-ground service delivery. And then also we have an owner success team that is taking care of the existing owners. So that's a bit how we structure it. And of course, if you have a small team, then you don't have such dedicated roles. But the more you grow, the more typically these roles get split out. Yeah, I think that's that part. And I think the last one I would also mention what is really important. And if we've seen that at GuestReady, if we get that part wrong, then owners get very frustrated, and that's payments and payouts to them, because in the end they care about the money. And if you make wrong calculations, and that happened in the past with GuestReady when we didn't have such good systems, we didn't pay out to them the right amount, they lose the trust and they're like, okay, what is going on here? And that's why we've automated all of that at GuestReady and Rental Ready. And this is also available for the property managers that use the system, that use Rental Ready, to have all of the payouts automated to the money comes from the different platforms into virtual wallets, and then from there our system calculates how much is the property manager's commission and how much goes to the owner. And it's just all automated, and you don't have to deal with this at the end, doing manual calculations in some spreadsheets and so on. So it's been super helpful and been really good for owners to have the reliability that all of their finances are taken care of. So I think this is a bit how this life cycle looks like, how we manage it at GuestReady, how Rental Ready supports that, and I hope that's given some good insights.
Absolutely. I think the two biggest thing that kind of resonated with me is like I said, it's really interesting to see how you structure things based on your years and years of experience in managing hundreds and thousands of properties. I think the way that you've shared this information can be it can bring real clarity to property managers who are starting to think about processes, how to divide how to structure their departments or teams, whether or not they're real teams, but in terms of like grouping actions, and then creating specific processes connected to each of the actions within
Yeah,
that department. So it doesn't have to be a person handling each of these departments, but at least creating that distinction can help think
exactly.
through the needs for these different departments, so to speak.
You're absolutely right. I mean, one person can handle two different departments, right? That's okay. But in a way, it's helpful to think about what clusters of related activities are there, and then somebody can do sales and onboarding, or somebody can do onboarding and owner success. Somebody can do guest communication and operations together. You can slice and dice it a bit the way how you want it. But it's good to think about the job descriptions of different departments and also of different individuals in the team.
Fascinating. That is superb. And yeah, obviously you were talking about owner onboarding. I think the more you do this work, the more you realize, the more you have epiphanies, you realize things that were obvious are actually not so obvious for everybody. We were doing a webinar, I think our January webinar, we were talking about using AI to kind of get more out of your content. Use one piece of content to create much more from that for your
Yeah.
marketing. And I created a sample guide, which was not the point of our webinar. I was going to use that guide to show them, oh, you can use it in these different contexts to create this different type of content from this one thing. And everyone was so interested in that guide itself because people wouldn't stop asking how we
Mhm.
created it and where it came from and will we share it with them. And we did. And we had this revelation that a lot of them do have owner guides, but they hadn't really had the chance to think through, oh, there is more than just this information that I need to, or how to structure this information in the guide. I need to let them know who they can contact and for what, and how will payouts work, and how will we look after,
Yeah.
how will maintenance work. Um, so that was a revelation to us, just as it was for everybody who was attending. And I think what you've shared today is, I hope that leads to such a revelation for someone who's watching, and I'm sure that will happen. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, since actually like now that you talked again about how payments work, I have a little anecdote to
Absolutely, yes.
share. In the early days of GuestReady, we weren't as much on top of our finances as we should have been, because you're always busy running around, making sure that the guests are happy, making sure that the owners are happy. In the end, you forget to calculate how much money you got. But what happened is that we always paid out the owners what they should have gotten, but we didn't really check if we got the money from the different platforms. And it turned out that many of the bookings that we already paid out to the owners, we hadn't received the money from Airbnb. They were stuck in Airbnb because we had hundreds of accounts. Each owner had their own account on Airbnb. And we just hadn't been paid, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars or pounds that hadn't been paid out. And that's the moment when we said, okay, we really have to strengthen the financial system. And now every single booking, every single payment gets automatically reconciled by the system, and it's been super helpful to have this over the last couple of years. And yeah, it just shows how sometimes one big incident happens, and then we leapfrog to a much better and much more robust technology and setup. And yeah, I hope that other property managers don't get into the same situation.
I hope not. It also goes to show the importance of having partners who are on top of things like this, because terms keep changing across OTAs, especially, like for example, Booking.com is now transitioning to the merchant model in a big way
Mm,
after decades of not having done that. Now Airbnb does that. So now you want
yeah,
partners who are on top of this change and are already configuring your systems to sort of like cooperate with these new terms, so that you
exactly.
as a property manager are not left wondering, oh, how does this impact my payouts? That should
Absolutely.
you want partners who've already considered that, or who are also all the time taking that into account. So yeah, so I think a good learning for everybody here. Um,
Absolutely.
I think really, really interesting stuff here, Alexander. Any parting words, any parting advice you would like to share before we move on to how people can find you and actually investigate more about what you do at Guest Ready and Rental Ready?
I would say, despite what I just said about payments, I think in the end, it really still boils down to the customers, your customers, and making sure that they have an amazing time with you, the guests, when they stay at the property, and also the owners, that things work out for them. And I think that's something that I also learned in the beginning. We were so excited and so ambitious, and we just wanted to grow. And we maybe didn't always pay the best attention to our guests and owners in the early days. But it's something that in the last couple of years I learned it really pays off. And also, we're an industry that has competitors out there, right? We're not operating in a vacuum. I mean, people can book a hotel, they can book any kind of other property. So why should they book a vacation rental? Why should they book a short-term rental? So that's why I think like we as an industry, we have to all up our game, and technology, processes, training of the staff, all of these topics are so important for that to deliver the best service for our customers. And I think that's what I would urge everybody to do, to not lose sight of the customers. I'm sure for most people that's already second nature in their business. We're in hospitality, but I just wanted to highlight that again.
Yeah. Even the most obvious thing can be easy to forget in the moment because you're so occupied doing other things. So, really important advice. Thank you. And where can our audience find you, Alexander, if they wanted to get to know more about you, your work, with Guest Ready, Rental Ready? How should they find you?
Yeah, they can find us on guestready.com and on rentalready.com. And me personally, you can find on LinkedIn. I think that's the easiest way to find me. You can reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm always happy to have a chat and give some first-hand insights. And yeah, hopefully for the one or the other, we can be helpful managing their property with Guest Ready or supporting their growth of the business and their work-life balance as well with Rental Ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? And I'll be including these links in the description of the video for anybody who wants them easy to find and click through. Thank you, Alexander. This has been a pleasure and very, very illuminating. I'm sure everybody who watches will have either a reminder or an entirely new piece of information to incorporate into their work life. So thank you for this. And I really appreciate you being here. For everybody else who's watching, thank you for tuning in. And fine, Alexander, if you have any more questions, goodbye.
Thank you so much, Yuvika. It was a pleasure to be here. And thanks you for hosting this session. It was super interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.